Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class, the ongoing story, the appearance of Lord Varaha, which is found in the third canto, and it's multiple chapters. Actually, I think it starts on the 9th chapter and goes all the way through the 19th chapter. So we've been reading quite a bit of this, and tonight we'll be reading chapter 16 and chapter 17. And we would like to call upon you guys to help us out to do that. And also, if you have any questions or illuminations or anything you'd like to share, you can stop us along the way. You can interrupt us. You can raise your hand. You can text the chat, and Rangavati's following that. And we'll be able to move this thing forward along the way, especially now that we're having the appearance of Lord Varaha coming directly up. It couldn't be more timely. So this is kind of a great gift of God that we just happen to be on this chapter at this particular time. This was not actually planned this way. So I think it's all auspicious. So I'm going to offer my respects to my guru, Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyarishatara. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya. Thank you so much for that. So now, on that auspicious note, I will remind you of the reading that we had in the last chapter, which I thought was pretty exquisite. A couple of notes on that, if you don't mind. Get my little computer working here. So on chapter 15, in the 15th chapter, 3rd canto, text 48, the verse reads this way: persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are engage in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and are worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions like the material happinesses found in the heavenly kingdoms. So in text 49 of the chapter 15, I'm just bringing you up to the reading we're doing today. Oh Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulasi leaves are beautified when offered into your lotus feet. And as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of your transcendental qualities. O Lord, we therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your eternal form as the personality of Godhead, which you have so kindly manifested before us. Your supreme eternal form cannot be seen by unfortunate, less intelligent persons, but we are so much satisfied in our mind and vision to see it. So we'll go back over some of 15 because there's a wonderful description of Vaikuntha there. And there's also a description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, description of the Lord in text 37 through 45. And also the description of Vaikuntha was from text 12 to 23 in chapter 15. So we'll probably visit that again a little bit at the end of this reading, if we have time. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and start. And normally the way we do this, we take 10 or 15 verses each. I think tonight we have about 80 verses to read. So 10 or 15 verses, you jump in whenever you want to. I'll do the first 10, and then we'll take it from there. Chapter 16, the two doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijaya, cursed by the sages. Text 1, Lord Brahma said, after thus congratulating the sages for their nice words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose abode is in the kingdom of God, spoke as follows. Personality of Godhead said, these attendants of mine, Jaya and Vijaya by name, have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring me. O great sages, I approve of the punishment that you who are devoted to me have meted out to them. To me, the Brahman is the highest and most beloved personality. The disrespect shown by my attendants has actually been displayed by me because the doormen are my servitors. I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen. Now, this is the personality of Godhead asking for forgiveness. This is some profound stuff. Text 5, a wrong act committed by a servant leads people in general to blame his master, just as a spot of white leprosy on any part of the body pollutes all of the skin. Anyone in the entire world, even down to the Chandala, who lives by cooking and eating the flesh of a dog, is immediately purified if he takes bath in hearing through the ear the glorification of my name, fame, etc. Now you have realized me without doubt. Therefore, I will not hesitate to lop off my own arm if its conduct is found hostile to you. The Lord continued, because I am the servitor of my devotees, my lotus feet have become so sacred that they immediately wipe out all sin, and I have acquired such a disposition that the goddess of fortune does not leave me, even though I have no attachment for her. While others praise her beauty and observe sacred vows to secure from her even a slight favor, I do not enjoy the oblations offered by the sacrificers and the sacrificial fire, which is one of my own mouths, with the same relish as I do the delicacies overflowing with ghee, which are offered to the mouths of the Brahmins, who have dedicated to me the results of their activities and who are ever satisfied with my prasad. I am the master of my unobstructed internal energy, and the water of the Ganges is the remnant left after my feet are washed. That water sanctifies the three worlds along with Lord Shiva, who bears it on his head. If I can take the dust of the feet of the Vaishnava on my head, who will refuse to do the same? The Brahmins, the cows, and the defenseless creatures are my own body. Those whose faculty of judgment has been impaired by their own sin look upon these as distinct from me. They are just like furious serpents, and they are angrily torn apart by the bills of the vulture-like messengers of Yamaraj, the superintendent of such sinful persons. Text 11, on the other hand, they captivate my heart, who are gladdened in heart, and who, their lotus faces enlightened by nectarine smiles, respect the Brahmins, even though the Brahmins utter harsh words. They look upon the Brahmins as my own self and pacify them by praising them in loving words, even as a son would appease an angry father, or as I am pacifying you. These servants of mine have transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of their master. I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me if you order that, although reaping the fruit of their transgression, they may return to my presence soon, and the time of their exile from my abode may expire before long. So who would like to pick it up there? That's text 13.
I'll do it.
Okay, go for
it. 13. Brahmana continued, even though the sages had been bitten by a serpent of anger, their souls were not sated with hearing the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, which was like a series of Vedic hymns. The Lord's excellent speech was difficult to comprehend because of its momentous import and its most profound significance. The sages heard it with wide open ears and pondered it as well. But although hearing, they could not understand what he intended to do. Pages turned. The four Brahmana sages were nevertheless, extremely delighted to behold him, and they experienced a thrill throughout their bodies. They then spoke as follows to the Lord, who had revealed the multi-glories of the Supreme Personality to his internal potency, Yogamaya. The sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know you. We are unable to know what you intended for us to do. For even though you are the supreme ruler of all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you. O Lord, you are supreme director of the Brahminical culture. You're considering the Brahmanas to be the highest position is your example for teaching others. Actually, you are the supreme worshipful deity, not only for the gods, but for the Brahmanas also. You are the source of the eternal occupation of all living entities, and by your multi-manifestations of personalities of Godhead, you have always protected religion. You are the supreme object of the religious principles, and in our opinion, you are inexhaustible and unchangeable eternally. Mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond these by ceasing all material desires. It is not possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored by others. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, the dust of whose feet is worn on the heads by others, waits upon you as appointed, for she is anxious to secure a place in the abode of the king of bees, who hovers on the fresh wreath of tulsi leaves offered at your feet by some blessed devotee. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your devotees, yet you are never attached to the goddess of fortune, who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path of transversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srivasa on your chest? O Lord, are the personification, no, excuse me. O Lord, you are the personification of all religion. Therefore, you manifest yourself in 3 millenniums, and thus you protect this universe, which consists of innate and inanimate beings. By your grace, which is of pure goodness and is the bestower of all blessings, kindly drive away the elements of rajas and tamas for the sake of the demigods and twice born.
Excellent.
How's that?
That's good. Thank you. Bhavananda, Prabhu, thank you very much. Yes, Vero, did you want to read a little bit? Are you with us there? Prahlad, do you want to read a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Text 23.
Yes.
O Lord, you are the protector of the highest of the twice born. If you do not protect them by offering worship and mild words, then certainly the auspicious path of worship will be rejected by people in general who act on the strength and authority of your lordship. Dear Lord, you never want the auspicious path to be destroyed, for you are the reservoir of all goodness. Just to benefit people in general, you destroy the evil element by your mighty potency. You are the proprietor of the three creations and the maintainer of the entire universe. Therefore, your potency is not reduced by your submissive behavior. Rather, by submission, you exhibit your transcendental pastimes. O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons, or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. We understand that we have cursed two faultless persons. The Lord replied, O Brahmanas, know that the punishment you inflicted on them was originally ordained by me, and therefore they will fall to a birth in a demoniac family. But they will be firmly united with me in thought through mental concentration intensified by anger, and they will return to my presence shortly. Lord Brahma said, after seeing the Lord of Vaikuntha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the self-illuminated Vaikuntha planet, the sages left that transcendental abode. The sages circumambulated the Supreme Lord, offered their obeisances and returned, extremely delighted at learning of the divine opulences of the Vaishnava. The Lord then said to his attendants, Jai and Vijay, depart this place, but fear not. All glory is unto you, though I am capable of nullifying the Brahmana's curse. I would not do so. On the contrary, it has my approval. This departure from Vaikuntha was foretold by Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. She was very angry because when she left my abode and then returned, you stopped her at the gate while I was sleeping. The Lord assured the two Vaikuntha inhabitants, Jai and Vijay, by practicing the mystic yoga system in anger, you will be cleansed of the sin of disobeying the Brahmanas and within a very short time return to me. After thus speaking at the door of Vaikuntha, the Lord returned to his abode, where there are many celestial airplanes and all surpassing wealth and splendor. But those two gatekeepers, the best of the demigods, their beauty and luster diminished by the curse of the Brahmanas, became morose and fell from Vaikuntha, the abode of the Supreme Lord. Then, as Jai and Vijay fell from the Lord's abode, a great roar of disappointment arose from all the demigods who were sitting in their splendid airplanes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That was beautiful. Thank you for that. Very, very nice. So who else would like to pick up at text 35? Anybody? Raghavati, you want some of that?
Okay.
Text 35.
35. Lord Brahma continued, those two principal doorkeepers of the personality of Godhead have now entered the womb of Diti, the powerful semen of Kashyapa Muni, having covered them. It is the prowess of these twin asuras, demons, that has disturbed you, for it has minimized your power. There is no remedy within my power, however, for it is the Lord himself who desires to do this. My dear sons, the Lord is the controller of the three modes of nature and is responsible for the creation, preservation, dissolution of the universe. His wonderful creative power, Yoga Maya, cannot be easily understood even by the masters of yoga. That most ancient person, the personality of Godhead, will alone come to our rescue. What purpose can we serve on his behalf by deliberating on the subject? That's the end of that chapter.
We want to read a little bit more in chapter 17.
Okay, change books.
Yep. Victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions of the universe.
Cool. Sri Maitreya said, the demigods, the inhabitants of the higher planets, were freed from all fear upon hearing the cause of the darkness explained by Brahma, who was born from Vishnu. Thus they all returned to their respective planets. The virtuous lady Diti had been very apprehensive of trouble to the gods from the children in her womb, and her husband predicted the same. She brought forth twin sons after a full 100 years of pregnancy. Was that celestial years or human years?
Celestial years, and she was keeping the children in her womb because she was actually concerned about the havoc they may wreak after they were born. But even in their womb, they had completely covered the universe in darkness and was causing great, great pain to all the living entities. So, yep.
On the birth of the two demons, there were many natural disturbances, all very fearful and wonderful, in the heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and in between them. There were earthquakes along with the mountains on the earth, and it appeared that there was fire everywhere. Many inauspicious planets like Saturn appeared along with comets, meteors, and thunderbolts. Their blue winds, which were most uninviting to the touch, hissing again and again and uprooting gigantic trees. They had storms for their armies and clouds of dust for their ensigns. The luminaries in the heavens were screened by masses of clouds in which lightning sometimes flashed as though laughing. Darkness reigned everywhere and nothing could be seen. The ocean, with its high waves, wailed aloud as if stricken with sorrow, and there was a commotion among the creatures inhabiting the ocean. The rivers and lakes were also agitated, and lotuses withered. Misty halos appeared around the sun and the moon during solar and lunar eclipses again and again. Claps of thunder were heard even without clouds, and sounds like those of rattling chariots emerged from the mountain caves. In the interior of the villages, the jackals yelled portentously, vomiting strong fire from their mouths, and jackals and owls also joined them with their cries. Raising their necks, dogs cried here and there, now in the manner of singing and now of wailing. O Vidura, the asses ran hither and thither in herds, striking the earth with their hard hooves and wildly braying. Frightened by the braying of the asses, birds flew shrieking from their nests, while cattle in the cowsheds, as well as in the woods, passed dung and urine. Cows, terrified, yielded blood in place of milk. Clouds rained pus. The images of the gods in the temples shed tears, and trees fell down without a blast of wind. Ominous planets such as Mars and Saturn shone brighter and surpassed the auspicious ones such as Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, as well as a number of lunar mansions. Taking seemingly retrograde courses, the planets came in conflict with one another. Marking these and many other omens of evil, everyone but the four sage sons of Brahma, who were aware of the fall of Jai and Vijay and of their birth as deities' sons, was seized with fear. They did not know the secrets of these potents and thought that the dissolution of the universe was at hand.
Nice. Yeah, it's intense, isn't it?
It is.
You imagine that as a scene in a movie, you know? Could you see it? Pretty wild. Thank you, Rangavati, very much. We got Nishinga here. We got Rakesh's folks. Is there anybody out of that group that would like to read from text 16? Please step up. Nishinga Leela, are you there?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay, would you like to read? If you want to read, just raise your hand and you can definitely read. We need everybody to read.
Sure.
Okay, take 10 or 15 verses.
These two demons who appeared in ancient times soon began to exhibit uncommon bodily features. They had steel-like frames which began to grow just like two great mountains. Their bodies became so tall that they seemed to kiss the sky with the crests of their gold crowns. They blocked the view of all directions, and while walking shook the earth at every step. Their arms were adorned with brilliant bracelets, and they stood as if covering the sun with their waists, which were bound with excellent and beautiful girdles.
You get all the pictures. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Kashyapa Prajapati, the creator of the living entities, gave his twin sons their name. The one who was born first, he named Hiranyaksha, and the one who was first conceived by Diti, he named Hiranyakashipu. The elder child, Hiranyakashipu, was unafraid of death from anyone within the three worlds. Because he received a benediction from Lord Brahma, he was proud and puffed up due to this benediction and was able to bring all three planetary systems under his control. His younger brother Hiranyaksha was always ready to satisfy his elder brother by his activities. Hiranyaksha took a club on his shoulder and traveled all over the universe with a fighting spirit just to satisfy Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyaksha's temper was difficult to control. He had anklets of gold tinkling about his feet. He was adorned with a gigantic garland, and he rested his huge mace on one of his shoulders. His mental and bodily strength, as well as the boon conferred upon him, had made him proud. He feared death at the hands of no one, and there was no checking him. The gods, therefore, were seized with the fear at his very sight, and they hid themselves, even as snakes hide themselves for fear of Garuda. On not finding Indra and other demigods who had previously been intoxicated with power, the chief of the Daityas, seeing that they had all vanished before his mate, roared loudly. After returning from the heavenly kingdom, the mighty demon, who was like an elephant in wrath for the sake of sport, divide into the deep ocean, which was roaring terribly. On his entering the ocean, the aquatic animals who formed the host of Varuna were stricken with fear and ran far away. Thus, Hiranyaksha showed his splendor without dealing a blow.
More keepers of Vaikuntha, they stopped these four sages from coming in. Vaikuntha.
Okay, very good. Now, Eunice, would you like to read?
Oh, okay.
Ramaranga.
Where are we now?
We're on text 26, I believe. Is that right, Nisringa?
26.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much for that reading. That was very wonderful.
On his entering the ocean, the aquatic animals who formed the host of Varuna were stricken with fear and ran far away. Thus, Hiranyaksha showed his splendor without dealing a blow. Moving about in the ocean for many, many years, the mighty Hiranyaksha smote the gigantic wind-tossed waves again and again with his iron mace and reached Vibhabari, the capital of Varuna. Vibhabari is the home of Varuna, lord of the aquatic creatures and guardian of the lower regions of the universe, where the demons generally reside. There, Hiranyaksha fell at Varuna's feet like a low-born man, and to make fun of him, he said with a smile, "Give me battle, O Supreme Lord. You are the guardian of an entire sphere and ruler of wide fame. Having crushed the might of arrogant and conceited warriors, and having conquered all the Daityas and Danyavas in the world, you once performed a Rajasuya sacrifice to the Lord. Thus, mocked by an enemy whose vanity knew no bounds, the worshipful Lord of the waters waxed angry. But by dint of his reason, he managed to curb the anger that had sprung up in him. And he replied, "O dear one, we have now desisted from warfare, having grown too old for combat." Continue?
You're welcome to.
Okay. You are skilled in war that I do not see anyone else but the most ancient person. Lord Vishnu, who can give satisfaction in battle to you. Therefore, O chief of the Asuras, approach him, whom even heroes like you mention with praise. Varuna continued, on reaching him, you will be rid of your pride at once and will lie down on the field of battle, surrounded by dogs for eternal sleep. It is in order to exterminate wicked fellows like you and to show his grace to the virtuous that he assumes his various incarnations like Bharat.
Well, that's
Bharat.
amazing. That's the Varaha. That's the 2 chapters that we've just read. It's amazing that we've done that in about 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Normally it takes a little longer. We could actually read another chapter if you guys would like to, or we can stop here and make a few comments. Depends on what you want to do. Does anybody have anything they would like to make a comment or ask a question about at this time? Okay. And if not, Rangavati, do you think we have time to read another chapter, or would you like to go back over these 2 chapters?
Well, it's up to you, but 18 and 19 go together. And then I think that's the end of this particular section. So maybe we should wait until Monday and just next Monday and do those last 2.
Right. All right. Very good. So in the last verse, text 31, he said, it is in order to exterminate wicked fellows like you and to show his grace to the virtuous that he assumes his various incarnations like Varaha, right? So Krishna is very clear about that in Bhagavad Gita, right? Do we know that verse? Yada hidarmasha glanir bhavati bharata adbhutanam hidarmasha tadatmanam srijamyaham, right? So the Lord is coming again and again and again and again. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavat Purana, describes all those incarnations in various species. We'll be reading about his tortoise incarnation soon, half man, half lion incarnation soon, and of course his beautiful human-like incarnations as well. So Varuna, he put him to task, didn't he? He said, I'm too old for battle. I know of no one but Lord Vishnu who could give you the battle that you're looking for. If you go to Lord Vishnu, you'll get rid of your pride at once. And you will lay down on the battlefield dead, surrounded by dogs, so that they can eat your body for eternal sleep. Right? So Varuna actually put him in his place. And of course, Varaha was already in the ocean and was lifting the earth. So in the next chapters, we'll see that Hiranyaksha then addressed him in the depths of the ocean. And the Lord had to come up and then set the earth by his mystic powers to float on the water and engage in this amazing battle story with Hiranyaksha, who was traveling all over the universe, uncontested. None of the demigods were willing to step up for the fight with Hiranyaksha, because Hiranyaksha actually was a Vishnu Duta. And we know stories in the Vedas, in the Bhagavatam, about Vishnu Dutas have come, like when Ajamil was there and they came and the Yamadutas were there and the Vishnu Dutas had a conflict. Well, the Yamadutas were overwhelmed with these magnificent personalities who were impossible to defeat in any possible way, had complete superiority. And so when they went back to see Yamaraj, they addressed Yamaraj at that time and they said, Yamaraj, we thought you were the supreme personality of Godhead. We thought you were the Lord. He's the Lord of death. But he explained very clearly that, no, I'm a servant of that supreme personality, Vishnu. And so they were amazed by that. So they realized that this power, supreme power, is overwhelming. So when the two doorkeepers of the spiritual sky, the seventh gate that these four Kumaras had come to, that passed through 6 gates innocently, and they come to the 7th gate, and then all of a sudden the weapons of the Vishnu Dutas are placed before them with their red eyes. They thought for a moment that these two individuals must be in Maya because of their disharmonious attitude towards the four Kumaras, and they were unable to detect the pure devotion that the four Kumaras were exuding. And so therefore they were offended. But as we go through the story and we go back over the story, even if we go back to chapter 15, which is the description of the kingdom of God, in text 8, in that chapter, very clearly explained that no one can violate the laws of God. Now, you may be able to violate them, but you will also have the repercussion of that violation. That's your karma. And so we see how the effects of karma are going through in the lives of so many. We had a discussion about this in the last class that we had, that some people are born very wealthy, some are born very poor, some are born very beautiful, some are born deformed, so many things like that. And it's not that God is not equal to everyone. It's that we have our own karma. And if we act independently in violation of the laws of God, then we will actually be the ones that are brought to bear for that activity. So we know from the previous chapter that no one can violate the laws and get away with it. That's number one. Number two, the four Kumaras were born from the mind of Lord Brahma. And when Lord Brahma asked the four Kumaras to propagate the world with progeny, they denied. They wanted to be celibate brahmacharis. They didn't want anything to do with the world. And so Lord Brahma was not very actually pleased by this, because his job is to populate this material universe. So they had gone all the way to the 7th gate. And when they arrived at the gate, that's when in chapter 15 we see a description of Vaikuntha. From the text 12 to 23, it describes Vaikuntha as lapis lazuli. Has anybody ever heard that? Raise your hand if you've heard of lapis lazuli. Most people don't know what that is. There you go. Nishringa knows what it is. But most people don't know what lapis lazuli is. So I just thought I would take a moment earlier and look it up. And what I found out is lapis lazuli is a very beautiful blue stone, very much like the color of Krishna. And it's very like a luminescent. And it has qualities that will activate the third eye, that activate this pineal gland and bring the consciousness to the higher chakras. So this description of lapis lazuli, an emerald and gold, I thought was very intriguing. And if you read those verses between 12 and 23 in chapter 15, you'll find it very, very enlightening, because they're standing before God. God came to them in this story, in this narration, and they see God in the kingdom of God. And so there's a description of the Lord in that chapter as well, from the verses 37 through 45, which are amazing. And I would recommend that we all go back through those and meditate on that, because by meditating on the description of God in that chapter, we become perfected. We're associating with God. We're immediately alleviated of all of our sinful reaction, our karma. All of that is done away with. We're bathed in the stupendous pastimes of the Lord, his activities, his entourage, descriptions of his person. We can understand what he looks like, what God looks like. The whole world is desperate for love of God. And they're looking under every rock, trying to find this love, this eternal love. And we hear it in the wedding vows, and we hear it in all other vows. I'll love you forever. But how is it possible to love someone forever in the material world? Because the body, whatever has taken its birth, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, its death is certain. So that we know that this love here is temporary, unless we then dovetail that love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we dovetail our love back to God, then we can love our family in perfection. Then we can love all these creatures in perfection. Krishna says here in this chapter, in the actually 16th chapter, he describes that his body is made of the cows and the Brahmins and the innocent creatures, offenseless creatures. These are actually the Lord's body. So in this world is a literal slaughterhouse. Literally. We're slaughtering not only the animals, but now we're slaughtering each other. And this has been going on, for time immemorial. If you look back at the history of this world, it is a history of war. We're fighting and fighting and fighting because we're trying to establish our theory as supreme. As a matter of fact, you're not even considered a scholar unless you can postulate your own theory that stands out above the other scholars. So speculation in the material world is running rampant. Mental concoction in the material world is running rampant. And we're living in an existence that we create by our own mental concoction. And so we see people being born in all types of situations, 8,400,000 species of life they're born into. We've tried them all, each one of them, and we've not been satisfied. We've had a family in each species, in each incarnation of our own body. We've tried to develop this selfless love, but ultimately in the material world, the confusion is all about me, mine, and I. Me, mine, I. This is the problem. This is the reason for our existence in the material world. This is the reason we're here. The devotee doesn't see me, mine, and I. He sees this is all Krishna's. I am Krishna's. Krishna is the soul of my soul. Krishna is the creator of everything that I see, of everything I taste, of everything I smell, of the entire universe that we're looking at. All these sparkles in the sky that we see at night which are trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies, and who knows how many trillions and trillions of universes. It's infinite. No one can understand. So we can't turn to scientists. We can't turn to people who are fallible. Prabhupada calls them fallible soldiers. How can a fallible soldier protect you when they can't even protect themselves? In one purport, it said, if you're already in the mouth of the serpent, how can you save me from the mouth of the serpent? Because you're being swallowed whole by the mouth of the serpent, soon to be digested by that. And so Prabhupada is very clear that it's not possible that we can turn to all these different fallible resources for information. In the chapter that we had read, the 15th chapter the previous time, there is a description there. It says in text 23, it says that it's regrettable that we do not discuss the descriptions of Vaikuntha, but instead would rather talk of dark, dead, pale, hackneyed, stale, useless material activities, writing hundreds of thousands of books on fiction. I want to ask you a question. Is there any benefit you're going to get by reading fiction? First of all, it's not real. It doesn't exist. So there's no benefit from that. And then there's all these other scientific philosophies or various philosophies that have all deviated from the original absolute truth that we find in these shastras like the Vedic literatures, which are handed down through the parampara system, right? And through that system, we know that we're receiving perfect information from a perfect resource by individuals who don't change the message, who don't contaminate the message with their own mental concoction, or try to rationalize religion and create a new religion that rationalizes their illicit behaviors. We discussed this once before, that even in Christianity, there's thousands of denominations, and they all disagree with one another because they're all looking for making their philosophy, their sect, a supreme over and above everybody else. And they're willing to kill for that. They're willing to actually wholesale kill one another for that, to establish their idea as supreme. But here we see that it's regrettable that we aren't discussing this original Vedic information, which is being passed down unbroken chain of disciplic succession given to us so that we can truly understand who is God. What does God look like? Where does he live? Who are his associates? Has he ever come to the world? When he did, what did he come like? And why did he come? What was the purpose of God being here? What were the effects of that activity? See, our minds as human beings should be Atato Brahma Jigasa. Who am I? Why am I here? Who put me here? Where am I going? These have to be the primary questions, not questions like we see the animals and the insects and the bugs and even the amoebas. Where is food? Where is sex? Where is defense? And how can I find a better arrangement to sleep? That's what we see going on in the material world all day long. They're running up and down. There's an interstate out here called Interstate 65, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're running headlong, breakneck speeds. They're crashing against one another. They're risking their life. Why? To eat? Food is available everywhere. It's just like we see the example of the ass. The ass, he is working hard. The master is loading him up way in the back, and he's sagging, and he's going along, and he's getting whipped and beaten. A beast of burden. Why? Because he expects the master to give him some grass at the end of that effort. But there's grass everywhere. Grass is growing everywhere. Prabhupada said it's not It's not for us to work hard like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. But instead, we should grow a little food, should work a little bit, let things come of their own accord, get out of this mode of passion, unlimited longings and desires, hankerings that create misery for all of us. When we can't get it, we get frustrated. When we get frustrated, we become angry. When we become angry, violence ensues. It's impossible to go on Facebook and not see all these little shorts that pop up. You guys have seen it. I know you've seen it. Where all these little shorts pop up of somebody who just had a road rage experience. What is so important that they're going to do that they're willing to kill someone over? Where's the rationale in that? Is there any rationality in it? No. It's unlimited longing and hankering with desires that can never be satisfied. And when we throw more logs on the fire blazes up and consumes everything. It burns our life down. It burns our country down. If you look right now, what's happening around the country, it's devastation in certain parts of the world. You can't even recognize the cities they've been bombarded. So much so. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yada samharate chayam kurmon ganivar sarvasha indriyan indriyarte vyastasya pragya pratishtitaha. So one who is able to withdraw his senses from the sense objects, just like a tortoise would withdraw his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. And the reason he says that is because if we don't control our senses will control us. And if we look around ourselves at others who aren't controlling their senses, you can see the reactions of that activity very clearly. It's on the news every night, right? It's written everywhere you look, right? They can't control their senses, and therefore they are literally crashing and burning. The whole world is doing that right now. So in chapter 15, it is said, there is no defeat in this material world for persons who control the mind and senses. There is no defeat for persons who control the mind and senses and who are therefore experienced mature mystics. So all living entities within this universe are conducted by the Vedic directions, just like a bull is directed by the rope attached to its nose. No one can violate the rules laid down by the Vedic literatures. And we know that God can be known. Krishna says, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. I am the Veda. He's the source of the Vedanta. He's actually the incarnation of Veda Vyas. So no one can actually violate these rules. But who knows these rules? Who's teaching these rules? Where can you find these rules at? Are they being taught in this elementary school? I don't think so. Are they being taught in the high schools? No. How about college? Are they in the college? Is everybody learning from college? No. And most religion is actually meant for sense gratification and economic development. Most people go to church to ask God for more money, more food, daily bread, maybe a nicer wife, right? Or a nicer husband. Or maybe they're asking for a bigger home or prestige or acknowledgement and fame in their lives. And they're all being frustrated in that effort. All of them. And when they're frustrated, they become angry, and many times they'll do things they can't really take back. So families are destroyed, societies are destroyed, friendships are destroyed, lives are destroyed, countries are destroyed, nations are destroyed. We see this happening over and over and over again. So the demigods were praying in chapter 15. They said they were praying to Brahma, please look upon us mercifully, for we have fallen into a miserable condition. The demigods say they are fallen into a miserable condition because of the darkness, and all of their work now was suspended because of Hiranyaksha and because of Hiranyakashipu, who are in the womb of Diti. And the power of that Kashyap's semen was literally causing great misery and suffering. So it says, as a fuel overloads of fire, so the embryo created by the semen of Kashyapa in the womb of Diti has caused complete darkness throughout the universe. That's how powerful this was at that time. And now we're reading in the next chapters that when they actually appeared, upon their appearance, pus is raining from the sky. Cows, instead of giving milk, are giving blood instead of milk, right? Trees are just falling down for no reason, without wind. The jackals are vomiting fire. We see that. We see that these portents have caused everyone in the universe, except for the Kumaras, who knew the story of Jaya and Vijaya, who were there with the Lord at the time. Everybody else thought it was the end of the universe. Everybody else thought the universe was coming to an end. Because these two great doorkeepers, who were Vishnu Dutas, very dear to the Lord, had committed an offense. But if we go back and we look, the offense, it says, was actually originated against Lakshmi. We think it's the four Kumaras, but it was originated against Lakshmi, who had left Vaikuntha for a moment and had come back, and they crossed their weapons still against her. And the Lord was asleep at the time, it says. So she was dealing directly with them, and she foretold of their ultimate demise and fall to the material world due to this not understanding the mind of their master. They did not understand the mind of their master. So therefore, they were acting in an offensive way. So in the material world, we see that nobody understands the mind of the master. They don't understand Krishna's mind. And they don't understand the Brahmanas who are bringing this information to the material world. They don't understand it. And so therefore, we're all offensive. We're all just like Vijaya and Jaya and Vijaya. We're all just like that because we are not in agreement with the absolute truth. We want to establish our concoction as the absolute truth. We want to establish ourselves as the supreme personality of Godhead. And each of us have come in here for that reason. Was there a question? Any question? Any thoughts that you guys want to share based on what we're talking about right now?
Yes, I had a question, Prabhu.
Please go. Yes.
Yeah, so when people hear these descriptions, what would you say to people who say, well, because they've never seen anything like this happen, they say this is mythology?
Okay. Well, and if they don't have any knowledge of it, that would be kind of expected, wouldn't you think? Right?
Right, but what would you say to them?
Well, I would easily say that the Puranas are actual histories. They're not mythology. Mythology means something that we've dreamed up and it's been handed around between people and changed over and over and over again. But these are actual histories. And so these are the histories of the universe. Mahabharata means basically the great story of the earth. Who was here prior to us? The Bhagavad Purana is a history that describes God's descending on the earth. It's very clear about who the personalities were, what their names were, what their dynasties were, what their time period of when they lived approximately was, or what yuga they might have been in. So yes, if people don't have knowledge, it's like if I say that God came as a boar, it could be difficult to understand. There's no question about it, that it could be difficult. But if you're a Christian, it may be difficult for you to understand that Jesus walked on water. or that he raised the dead, or that he fed 5,000 people with one loaf of bread. See what I'm saying? Miraculous experiences we don't have experience of, we may disbelieve because we have no faith at this point. So faith is something that's developed by eliminating doubt from our lives. The only way we can eliminate doubt is by hearing from the spiritual master. Okay, and by hearing from the spiritual master and then applying this information scientifically in our own life. So, for example, I've been practicing sadhana bhakti now for over 50 years. So if I were completely a fool, idiot, crazy, and it didn't, I would still be doing it if it didn't work, right? Because they say crazy means to do something that doesn't make any sense and continue to do it. But I have found that this produces a ripened fruit of love of God. I've not only seen it in my own life to a certain degree, but I've seen it in the lives of other devotees around me who are practicing this bhakti yoga. So if you want to take it to that position, Rakesh, and you say that a science is something that you can prove by an experiment, and that's the only thing you want to believe, then I would challenge you to practice this bhakti yoga process, and then you can experiment for yourself and you can have direct perception. Prabhupada one time said, after a man has eaten a full meal, you cannot convince him that he's not full or satisfied. You may say you're not satisfied. You may argue with him about him being satisfied, but he knows, he senses that he's filled. There's no doubt in his mind that he is satiated. Right? Now, if we run after the material energy, there's no doubt in our mind we'll be insatiable. It'll be an insatiable experience. And there's no cure for that material contaminated approach to life unless you take up this mission, this approach to love of God. You have to practice love if you don't love. And then gradually, if you develop love, then you know the experiment was factual. Now, a lot of people are, just to answer your question in another way, a lot of people are prone to anthropology or sciences or whatever. Back when I lived in Atlanta, Rakesh, you might remember, I was roommates with Richard L. Thompson, Sariputta Das, and who else? Swarup Damodar used to come all the time, another great scientist. Prabhupada was very proud of him. Life Comes from Life, those books. And then also Michael Cremo. So these people are doing their best to use their science, their mathematics, their anthropology, their history to prove the existence of these stories. And they've done a very, very nice job. For an example, there's evidence now that Dwarka actually fell off about the time when Krishna left. And there's evidences under the water of the columns and of this, the various features of the city of Dwarka. Okay. They're digging up obelisks that have information from thousands of years ago. So you can look at it from various ways. They're doing this in all religions. They're doing this in Christianity now. Also, they're trying to prove the life of Christ and the life of these stories that we see just 2,000 years ago. The problem is time erased everything. Time withered by the wind, moistened by the water, burned by the fire. Everything is destroyed. So Krishna says, I come again and again and again to reestablish the principles of religion and annihilate the miscreants. That's why this is happening. We're very small. We're infinitesimal, and God is infinite. So we have to hear this over and over and over again to be able to understand it. Now, at some point, we have to actually have faith in the spiritual master. And we have to take his words as the truth in our life. And we do that after mature contemplation. We don't do that lightly. We do that after studying the life of these great saints and sages. finding out who they are. And then as we grow in our knowledge and study of the Shastra, then we can test this knowledge against the life we're leading, against the world we're living in. And we can find out if it's true or false in that way as well. So there's three things: Shastra, Sadhu, and Guru, right? So these are three kind of the pyramid. You know, a pyramid has a big foundation like that. And so it's very solid. So this foundation will help. Plus, we can hear the voice of God in our own heart as super soul, and the voice of our conscience that will dictate to us if we start to go off the path. We can know what is right if we just listen. In the Bible, there's a verse that says, "Be still and know that I am God." So the stillest part of our day is during japa. We're calling on the names of God. That vibration connects us to God. If we stop our mind from rambling on the endless loop, the hamster loop, and we quit thinking about what we're going to eat at lunch or who we're going to meet that day or some nonsensical thing that has to do with eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, if we could just put that aside just for a little while, then God can speak to us and we'll have time to associate with God through his holy names. Then we can know God perfectly well. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that only by undivided, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service can I really be known as I am standing before you, and can thus be seen directly by you. So if someone is saying, oh, how do we know this is mythology or if this is history or whatever, the first thing is you have to practice undivided, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. And then Krishna will reveal himself in due course of time to that sincere devotee. And in that way, we can know God perfectly well. We can understand God. So much so that if we remember God at the time of death, we can go back home, back to Godhead, and be with the Lord in the spiritual sky. But if a person is not in control of their senses, they cannot be trusted. They can't be trusted. Can't trust themselves. You got another question, Rakesh? I see your hand is raised.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much for that detailed answer. So the next question would be, how long does it take to experience this process fully, and what do we do when we come across difficulties in our lives?
Very, very good question. Excellent question. Thank you, Rakesh. Well, you already know the answers to this because I know who you are. But you're doing this for the benefit of others, like the Kumaras did. When Krishna said he was the servitor of his devotees, the Kumaras made it very clear that no, Lord, we're your servant. You say those things for our educational purposes, and we appreciate that. So you already know the answers to this. But the basic question that you had first was the second question was when we come across difficulties. What was the first part again? I'm sorry. Rakesh still there? He disappeared. There you are.
No, I'm still here. I was, how long does it take to fully experience, to become mature in devotional service?
Well, let me say that it could happen in an instant, or it could take thousands of lifetimes, depending on your sincerity. A person's sincerity is really what Krishna wants. Just like when we offer the food to the Lord, he's already created all these things. And we're offering something back to the Lord who's giving it to us, even the bodies that we live in, to be able to relish these foodstuffs and flavors and so forth. Does he need that from you? No. What he's looking for is love. He's looking for sincerity. So if you could become 100% sincere, it could be an instant. But if you're not sincere, you may have to go through the school that I went through called the School of Hard Knocks. Has anybody been through that school before? So they say there's three kinds of intelligence, right? Somebody who can see that I can't remember the exact story, but I think it's somebody who can see it happening and they learn from that. Somebody can just be told that it will happen and they can learn from that. And others who are a little duller like me, who can be told and see it happening, but still have to go try it for themselves and then get hit upside the head, and then finally realize, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm surrendering to the Lord. So great sages throughout all history in the Vedic literatures have left their kingdoms, left their families, their treasuries. They've left their wives, they've left their armies, they've left their palaces, they've left their all of these things that they had to want to go naked into the Himalayas to meditate on that vision of God. They want to meditate on God at the end of the life because they know that none of those things they had, even though they had complete control of the world and everybody was their minions or their sovereignty to them, they gave it all up for something higher, for a higher taste. So Krishna does say that in the Bhagavad Gita, he talks about a higher taste. He said, even though one may, here it is, he said, attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by all embodied beings. But one should not fall under control of senses and sense objects because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. And even though one has given it up, the taste for sense objects may remain. But by practicing sincerely, by right means, he can overcome lust, he can overcome greed, he can overcome anger, and he can actually please the Lord with his activities. So yes, when you run across difficulties, then the best thing to do is chant harder, chant more, associate with the Vaishnava. Normally you need a good friend in Vaishnavism. You need someone that you can reveal your heart and mind to that won't really judge you and take your dirty laundry out to the street, as they say, because we all have problems. And so therefore we have to work on our problems, and we're here together to help row that boat across this ocean of nescience. So I hope that answers your question. The Kumara said that they will accept any punishment. They'll go to hell. They'll go anywhere on behalf of the Lord, as long as the Lord will give them the boon that they would not forget him. You see what I'm saying? So this is pure devotion. And pure devotion is what we want to experience in our lives. And then all doubt will be removed. Sometimes the Lord will give you a little token ecstasy. If you've done some nice service, he give you that little ruchi, that little taste that we're longing for, just one drop of that nectar, and that gets you longing for the next drop of nectar. It's almost like the carrot story, right? They're putting the carrot in front of the horse or the rabbit or whatever, and it's running to get it, and they're moving it down the track a little bit to test you. So tried and true is the secret here. We're all going to be tested, and we have to be true. And if we are, the Lord will award you with that knowledge that you're longing for and that remembrance of the Lord, so that you can reestablish your relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your original Sarup city, in your perfection, in your own original body and spiritual body. Satchidananda Vigraha. So, okay. Any other questions? So one thing that I wanted to share with you guys was that the Lord, one of the most profound things that we've read in these chapters is in text 7 in chapter 16. He says that I am the servitor of my devotees. He's the servitor of his devotees. So the Lord is the greatest servitor. He's the greatest master. Everything you've ever desired has been fulfilled by the Lord. Who else can you say has done that for you? I mean, your parents are trying. They're trying to help a little bit. But the Lord is the father of everyone, the mother of everyone, the best friend of everyone, the most beloved of everyone. And that relationship has to be reestablished. That original relationship with the Lord has to be reestablished. So we're at 8:15 now, guys. I've got another 2 pages of notes here that I'd love to go over with you. Maybe we'll catch some more of this next time. But we're putting this down in little book form ultimately, because what we're trying to do is take these wonderful stories, which are really like, it's like a garland of these fabulous stories that we can wear, that we can read, that we can hear, that we can study, bring them out, encapsulate them in smaller books, and let people understand who is Varaha. Let people understand who is Kurma, Matsya. People understand who's Vedavyas, who's Narada. People to understand who the Pandavas were. People need to understand this greater story, because otherwise their minds will be distracted to all nonsense. And that nonsense will entangle them and entwine them and bound them in a network of hard knots in the heart. And this Vedic knowledge is like a knife that you can just cut those knots and liberate yourself from this entanglement in the material world, which the demigods called misery. Brahma Bhuvanal Loka. We know that even from the highest planet down to the lowest, they're all places of death. Repeated birth and death are taking place, and that is a miserable experience for a soul that wants to live forever. This is how you live forever. So when we hear these stories, we become deathless. This is the cure for death. So thank you all for coming tonight. Is there any other comments? Anything else anybody wants to add while we're still here? See a hand up. No? Rakesh, I think we got your questions answered. Prahlad, I want to thank you so much for joining in tonight and helping us out.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. I'll be here for the next session. It's wonderful hearing everyone and hearing your elucidations. It's greatly wonderful. I appreciate it. It made me remember as you were answering the questions about Shabda Praman, the Bhagavatam question, and these subject matters are so wonderful to hear. Thank you. Haribol.
Thank you very, very much. And we need to propagate this information more and more. So take these classes, these readings, and repost them. Right, Rangavati? We want them to repost this, because you have a network of friends. They could be influenced as well. And otherwise, what are we doing here? Wasting time eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The bugs are doing that. The dogs are doing that. We have got to rise to the human level, which is to understand who we are, why we're here, who put us here, where we can go when we leave here, and know the true options. We can't do it with these eyes. These eyes can only see so far. We can see lights in the sky so that we know that something is there, but we don't know what it is. Bhagavatam tells us what it is, tells us who it is, what they're doing and why they're doing it. And we can learn from these great histories. These are not myths. These are not fiction stories. These are actual histories. And that, therefore, we call it, what, Rangavati? What do we call
it? Great histories and personalities.
Thank you very, very much, everybody. Listen, I love you, everyone. I'm so grateful that you're here with us, and we'll be doing this again, and we'll be finishing up the Varaha story. I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful appearance day for Nityananda, which is coming right up. Varaha's appearance tomorrow and on Ekadasi is not going to get much better. So take tomorrow and make it a great day, because we'll fast tomorrow and we'll feast on Wednesday. Haribol. Varaha ki jai.
Jai.
Lord
Haribol. 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 I'm going to go ahead and end the class with your permission, and we will pick it up same time, same station next week. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Ram Ram,
Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Jai Prabhupada, Haribol.
Haribol.